I read something interesting that I want to talk to you about because I would like to imagine if it were us doing this.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, it's a silly thing. First of all, this is how I stumbled upon this, I think. I remember reading this one thing. Recently, there was an attempt at a record. And the record is the aircraft that has the longest endurance flight. Now, what does that mean to you when you hear endurance?
It means you don't land.
Right, exactly.
Oh, wait. No, I have another question.
What?
You don't land and it's one pilot? Or are you allowed to have another pilot that sleeps in the back and then you keep swapping?
Great question. Well, the particular aircraft that set this record is called the Zephyr, Zephyr, made by Airbus. Now, back in the Wright brother days, have you ever seen the Wright brother plane in
Kitty Hawk, North Carolina?
Yeah, the replica of it they have in Washington, D.C. It's like a cotton fabric stretched over sticks, and there's cables, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, they made a rudimentary airfoil. Well, think about what we could do with modern technology. Do you know what the power plant was on the Wright brothers flyer, the Wright flyer? Do you know what it was?
No, actually, I don't.
It was a gasoline engine.
Okay.
What do you know about Kitty Hawk?
It wasn't in the air very long.
No.
And it wasn't the most comfortable landing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's odd. Like have always kind of imagined like a steampunk bicycle plane or something when I picture it. I mean, the way they sit in it kind of reminded me of a motorcycle, the pictures that I saw. Yeah, I guess to get off the ground, you'd need some kind of actual combustion. So,
yeah.
All right.
They did. Lightweight engine. It's awesome. I recently went to D.C., got to see it, and they did a lot of aerospace engineering. They had a wind tunnel. They discovered an airfoil. They didn't have, like, ailerons on the wings that you could, I'm doing my hands back and forth like I'm flying like a bird, but, you tilt the back of the wing and you can tilt things up and down. They twisted the whole wing with cables, which was amazing. But recently, if you think about the principles they figured out then, they're the same. They're the same when they figured it out. They're the same now, right?
Yes.
But we have modern technology. So what modern technology do you think we could bring to bear to make a longer duration flight? What would you do right now? Just say the biggest tech, mechanical engineering words you can think of.
Oh my goodness. Materials that can sustain that drag without being damaged. You're going with muslin fabric or something on there. It's going to rip the same way a flag eventually rips out.
So don't do fabrics. Do composites. What's a fancy composite you can think of?
I don't know. The carbon fiber.
Exactly.
Use that in everything.
Carbon fiber. Yeah.
That'd be great.
So we used a gasoline engine back then. What would be a good option for a way that we would do a long duration flight now?
Well,
my point is you can design the plane that just did this record, this endurance record.
Can I? Really?
Yeah, you could. At a systems level.
Well, how much is it? Okay, but there are two different ways that we could go about this. Way number one would be to say we're going for the lightest weight, most efficient, mixed with durability so that we don't have refueling as a constant problem.
Yes.
Or way number two is if we think we can get it to such a long flight that keeping the vehicle together without maintenance that would normally happen every few hours after concluding a flight, if we think that's the important thing, that's going to be heavier and you're going to have to refuel in flight a lot more to make it work, but you build it so that you feel very confident this doesn't need any maintenance over many more flight hours than it would ever go without maintenance.
Can you imagine a design that would not need to be refueled?
I can imagine a design that would have a very large amount of fuel that is supplied externally.
What is that?
You have another
You're right. Keep
plane
going.
Flying in front of it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm making this too hard for you.
Okay, how about this? No, wait. But then you have to swap planes because they have to refuel, because then the plane refueling you would be setting the endurance record instead. And then why don't you just go with that?
So recently,
fly it 15 feet off the ground and drive a truck behind it.
Well, yeah.
And stick a hose into it and go to the Bonneville Salt Flats and just drive laps.
Okay, well, that's something else we're going to talk about today. But let me tell you about the Zephyr real quick. So the Zephyr is a new airplane that was made by Airbus that almost set the endurance record.
What is the endurance record?
Well, the Zephyr stayed in the air for 64 days, 18 hours, and 26 minutes.
What?
64 days. Now, there's not a pilot on this. The Zephyr is a carbon fiber, large sail wing looking thing with solar panels on the top of it.
Okay, I thought about that, but I thought we had to have a human in there. And I'm like, well, there's 175 pounds right off the bat that we have to account for. Solar can't keep up with that.
The solar panels charged up batteries, and so at night, this thing is running off battery power. But during the day, it's charging and it's power.
Refilling.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't that awesome? And so they fly this thing at 70,000 feet. And so my guess, being an aerospace guy, my guess is they're also getting some benefits from the thermals up there. It's powered flight. There's not a human on board. But what could you do with that technology? You could keep something in the air at 70,000 feet for 2 months. What could you do with that?
I'm sorry, I got to go back one question, then I want to think about that question. In North American summer, Northern Hemisphere summer, why couldn't you just do this experiment at a very high line of latitude and stay in sun all the time so you don't have to even charge batteries? Just
because maybe you want to loiter over a certain target at a certain latitude.
Why would somebody want to do that?
Because you could observe it all day long. It's a pseudo-satellite.
But that's like a peeping Tom kind of thing.
It is.
It's gross, man. Wait a minute. Is that what you could do with it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. All right. I get it now.
I'm making you work too hard.
No, you're not. This is fun.
Okay. So anyway, that's what the Zephyr was and is. So the Zephyr just recently did this endurance test, 64 days, 18 hours, and 26 minutes. However, unmanned. That is not the endurance record.
Is the endurance record manned?
The endurance record is manned, and it was set in the 1950s. So we are now in the 2020s. A record that was set in the 1950s still stands. Think about that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that, and it's bothering me.
We have new technology.
I always root for the old timers.
Yes.
You know this about me.
Yes.
I love that the Greeks know things that we don't know. I think that's just incredible. But I, for the life of me, cannot even start to put together a way that makes sense because the technology is so much better now. The fuel is more efficient. People are so much heavier on average. Well, actually, no, that works the other way, I guess, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't have a theory. I don't have a guess. How'd they do it?
So this was a test by the U.S. Army. They said that it landed, or it had an event that made it come down. I don't know that it actually landed on purpose. Something stopped the test 4 hours short of the record. And today I want to tell you the story of the Las Vegas Hacienda Hotel endurance record that was set by two crazy guys back in the 1950s. And I just want to tell you the story. I don't know a whole lot about this, but I've read what I can find on it, and it's fascinating.
Okay, let me give you this bit of feedback on the front end. Here's why I'm intrigued. Well, I'm intrigued because all the things you said about flying for a long time and all that business, that's great. It doesn't seem like if you were going to talk about an airplane record, that naming it after a hotel makes sense because of how airplanes generally move to places and don't stay in one place when they fly. So I'm hooked.
Yeah, this is interesting. Let's do it. All right, so here's the deal. It's the 1950s. Las Vegas is popping up. You got all these casinos popping up, the high rollers, they know where to go. Where do you go in Las Vegas if you're a high roller? The Strip, right?
Right.
Yeah. What hotel would you go to today?
Now?
Yeah.
Wynn, Aria, I think those are the new fancy ones. 15 years ago, Bellagio and Caesar's Palace were real hot.
Now, you've actually lived in Vegas.
Yes.
And the airport there is
McCarran,
yeah. So, do you know in the baggage claim area when you're in there and you look up and there's this airplane attached to the ceiling?
Oh, I know exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes, I know what you're talking about.
What does that airplane look like?
Primitive.
Yeah.
Old.
Yeah.
Small.
Yeah. It's a Cessna 172.
Great. I would not know that.
That airplane that is hanging above the baggage claim at the Las Vegas airport stayed in the air with two humans flying it for 64 days, 22 hours, and 19 minutes.
Why?
I kid you not. That happened.
And it's weird because the first question should be how, but my first question instead is why.
Well,
what on earth would make a man decide to do that kind of thing?
Okay, so the Hacienda Hotel. First, we have to talk about that. So there was this dude named Doc Bailey. His wife, Judy, they decided to build the Las Vegas Hacienda Hotel.
Where is this in Las Vegas?
Off the Strip.
It sounds like an off-strip hotel.
Yeah. This is for the low rollers.
Sure.
They used to laugh about it being where the low rollers, because you're at Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
all these people are flying out to Vegas. They want to do the vacation thing, but you actually have people that live in Vegas.
Yes, you do. That's the thing.
And they want to go on a date one night too. Or they want to just, let's take the weekend, darling. We've been working really, really hard over, I don't know what you do in Vegas for a job, but we've been doing all this stuff, maybe working at the other casinos.
Hitman.
A hitman. Yeah, who knows? So they want to chill out, right? By building this hotel, Doc Bailey and his wife, they're like, we want a place for the families of Vegas. So they branded it as the family casino, which is kind of funny, right?
Yeah, it's an oxymoron.
Did you ever take your family to a casino in Vegas?
What do you think? I'm some kind of yes, I did.
What did you do?
You go and walk through New York. I always thought it was fun because it's in New York and that's a long ways away. I can't get you there right now, but we can look at this. The Bellagio's fun. It's like you're in Italy. Caesar's Palace, it's all anachronistic, and they've got Greek stuff in there, and they're off by hundreds of years on several of their displays. But if you just set aside the historical disbelief,
that looks old.
It's fun. It looks old. It's marble or something, Greek rubbed, whatever. They got fuzzy things on their hats. Trojan horse, sure, missed by 800 years from Julius Caesar. It's about as bad as me missing from now to knights in shining armor with a 50s diner that I want to design. Whatever. Good enough. Yeah, you go to those places because it's just a cool vibe to show the kids. Didn't gamble with the kids at all.
Didn't?
No.
So what he's doing, what Doc Bailey's doing, is he's trying to make a place where the locals can chill out. In fact, they call the place, according to all the articles I read, they call it Hayseed Heaven. Hayseed meaning like, a lower class redneck kind of person, somebody that works really hard.
Yeah.
And they embraced that title. They're like, yeah, we are the Hacienda. And the people that worked at the Hacienda, they were kind of a tight-knit family type vibe, everybody liked each other, the maids, the slot machine mechanics, all this. Doc Bailey is kind of an interesting guy. He decides he wants to do some type of large marketing campaign.
Okay. A stunt. That's a very Vegas thing to do.
And so he goes around and he starts talking to everybody. Like he talks to the maids. He talks to all these different people. And it is a slot machine mechanic that said, hey, I got an idea for you. What if we go for the endurance record? And there was this guy, his name was Robert Tim, and he was a slot machine mechanic that was actually a World War II bomber pilot, and he loved flying. And he said, I bet we could make an airplane beat the endurance record, which at the time was a surmountable task. Like, I think it had been set in the 30s or 40s. I don't know. I don't remember all the dates. But it had been set at least a decade before. And so they started talking about it, and Doc said, you know what? Let's do it. You know what? I'll give you $100,000 to do this.
Doc.
Go buy a plane.
Wow.
Go do whatever you got to do. Just make it happen, and we're going to get all this publicity. If somebody gave you $100,000 right now and said, hey, Matt, I need you to go build a plane that will beat the current endurance record that's, let's say it's 30 days, whatever it was, what would you do? What would you do different than a normal plane?
I would go find somebody who's already working on it, ask to become an investor, give them the $100,000, and ask for a share of their prize money that would earn me back more than $100,000. I'm so overwhelmed by that. The refueling is going to be the key, and life support. What are you going to do with your poop? 64 days, for me, that's 128 poops. I don't want all that in there with me. I mean, we're going to accumulate.
Okay.
How am I getting the food? How am I going to get through the first half of this thing with all of that food not yet converted to poop and dumped out the back of the plane? I got to have somewhere to fly it. I have to be able to resupply. There's absolutely no way for me to make this work without resupplying or eating and drinking things I don't want to eat and drink.
This is fascinating because your brain instantly goes to the human part of it, and my brain instantly goes to the engine and the valves. I'm like, how am I not? I'm going to burn a valve out like doing this. How am I going to keep enough oil in the engine? That means I have to.
You didn't think about all the poop?
No, I did. I mean, I don't. I'm thinking mechanics first, but eventually I would get to the poop. But I think about the engine first.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm ready for 64 days in a container on the ground the size of an airplane, let alone one the size of an airplane, but in the air. That's fascinating. Okay.
So Robert Tim gets to work.
Yep.
He gets an airplane. He starts stripping it down. He takes out the back seat, replaces it with a cot. He starts modifying everything. They reach out to an engine manufacturer and they said, "Hey, we need a special engine that can do this. Don't you want to be the engine manufacturer that made the engine that has the endurance record?"
Of course.
And I forget who it was. This fancy pants engine maker's like, "Yeah, of course we do." And he goes, "Okay, well, I need a special one. I need it to be really good." And so the guy at the engine factory is like, "Okay, cool." And then he tells his secretary, "Hey, go out on the floor and pick out an engine. This guy needs an engine." And so they ended up doing it. I forget the name of that company. So they get this new engine, and then Robert Tim is, he's a bit of a control freak. So he starts doing things. He adds a funnel so that he can add special alcohol into the engine because he thinks that alcohol will get rid of the carbon buildup as it starts to build up. He starts getting all these dials and stuff that he can access the engine itself while the plane is running.
So he's trying to do fuel additives like people used to do on their vehicles with some frequency, imagining that this would somehow clean out the system.
Have you ever put gas in an airplane? Have you ever done that?
No, but I've watched somebody do it.
How'd they do it?
Well, they had a little truck that they came out with. It was a small plane. It wasn't a normal fueling. The fuel went into the wing. It wasn't like a gas trigger at the gas station or even like you'd put gas in a boat. It was a different attachment. They didn't turn it on at the point where the fuel goes in. They turned it on back at the...
Oh, so they like attached it and then they hooked it. So this particular plane is a Cessna 172, which I've fueled up before. And on that one, if I recall correctly, we would climb up on top of the wing and we would pop the little gas cap off on top and we'd put fuel in the top of the wing. But you're right. I've seen the little fuel trucks as well. The pump's back at the truck.
Yeah, it was adorable. It wasn't like a big production or anything.
Yeah. So that's what they did. They had to modify that airplane so that it could be refueled. But there's a problem. Air-to-air refueling is not really a thing at this time. And, we're coming out of World War II and all that. They know how to do it, but, you're not going to air-to-air refuel a Cessna 172. It's got a propeller on the front, right?
Yeah, that's a huge problem for your refueling hose. Do you ever play the Nintendo Entertainment System Top Gun game?
Yes.
The hardest thing to do in all of video games, other than stab Jaws with the front of your boat, is refuel that stupid Top Gun plane. I can shoot down all your dumb Russian MiGs or whatever, but I simply cannot make gas go back into my plane. I'm going to have to crash into the ocean again. So based on that, which is my only experience with air-to-air refueling, it's very difficult.
There's a special helicopter that the Chinook. There's a special Chinook that I think the 160th uses, the really good helicopter.
What is the 160th?
The Night Stalkers. They're the best helicopter pilots in the nation.
Can you say the name of what they are again, but cooler?
The Night Stalkers.
The Night Stalkers.
Yeah.
Ooh,
yeah,
that did something to me. I am titillated.
Yeah. Hey, keep that to yourself.
Hey.
So they have a big fan on top of the Chinook helicopter, but they have this big long boom out in front of the nose, and it's the weirdest looking thing, but that's designed just so they can refuel a Chinook, which to me is amazing.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're not living in the age of jet turbines for these small, well, I guess we are, but not for commercial airplanes or like private airplanes. We have to use an internal combustion engine. They give it a go. They do all this stuff. They start flying. They take off. And they have this plan. They're like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take off. It's me and this other pilot. We don't actually know the other pilot's name for the first two attempts because apparently they didn't get along to the point where Robert never spoke of this guy again.
Oh.
But they gave it 2 cracks, and it did not work. Something happened, and they had to land. But the way they...
How long? What did they get out of it? How long were they up there?
I don't know. They didn't even beat the original record. It was I think it was like a week or 19 days or something.
Well, that's long enough to develop a hatred for someone.
It is, yeah. So that happened apparently. They took off this speeding down, I guess it was a road near the desert. They would drop the airplane really close to the deck, and then somebody in a truck would reach up and paint the tire. So you paint the tire white or whatever so that when they land, right before they land, you can go back and you can inspect the tire and you can say, oh, they've never touched the ground.
Oh, yeah. Good.
Yeah. So that's what they did. Anyway, so they tried it twice, didn't work. They developed a hatred for each other. move forward. They ditched this new fancy pants engine that they decided to try out, and then they went back to the Cessna is a brand new plane at this point in time. It's a great airplane. People still fly them today. But in the course of them trying to beat this and it not working, somebody else beat the endurance record. And they did it with a Cessna 172 with a stock engine.
Really?
Yeah. And so how would you feel about that?
Discouraged.
Exactly.
I would not like it, and I would feel even blamier toward the two idiot co-pilots who couldn't pull their weight.
Yeah. Yeah. It was actually, I think it was one guy that was just a jerk both times or whatever. Maybe he was a great guy. Maybe Robert Tim's the villain. I have no idea. But apparently they didn't get along. They move forward. They replace it with the stock Cessna engine, and then they're starting. And then there's a problem. You've already tried this 2 times. Didn't work. So the whole point is media coverage. At this point, it's not working out. What do you think? Like, hey, Matt Whitman with the Las Vegas Tribune. We're gonna try the Hacienda endurance stunt again. You want to come out and cover it?
I'm good. Didn't somebody else already just win that after you guys failed twice? No, I'm good.
Right. So that's kind of the vibe at this point. There's another thing. It's clearly a marketing stunt. Clearly. What would you do if you knew you had a marketing stunt on your hand? You're trying to tell everybody about your casino being this is the casino for the common man. This is a family casino. Can you think of anything you could do to spice up this thing to make it more palatable to everyone?
Well, I would bring in a local radio station and have them do a remote with hot dogs and balloons. We got face paint for the kids, and we're setting the all-time aerial endurance record. Come on down to the Hacienda Hotel on Tropicana Boulevard in Las Vegas. I'd do that. I'd have that guy with that voice say those words into a microphone.
You're really good at that.
Thanks.
So you'd have hot dogs and balloons?
In face paint.
Yeah. And
maybe a dunk tank.
Then they did the secret weapon. When you kind of just want to do something and you kind of need it to mean more than what it actually means, there's a secret weapon that people sometimes employ. That's right. They raised money for cancer. That's what they did.
You're kidding me.
No, they did. Yeah.
Seriously? They went altruistic?
They did.
Lame.
So they're like,
guys, we just care so much about cancer that we're going to go fly in a plane for 64 days to help with the cancer. Apparently people are getting it now, and it's very bad.
Yeah.
And we are going to try to stop it.
Now, there is one endurance record.
Did they succeed? Did they end up stopping cancer?
No, actually
So we
not.
still have it.
We still have.
Well, that is another failure that they are going to have to live with.
Yeah, there actually is a guy that did something pretty amazing, an endurance record that was for cancer. And have you ever heard of Terry Fox?
Mm-mm.
So Terry Fox was this guy in Canada. He is a legend. It's a big deal in Canada. But Terry Fox got cancer, and he had one leg as a result of this. And he ended up running across the country. It's called the Marathon of Hope. He did it in the 1980s.
That's ringing a bell.
Yeah. It's a big deal. And so that is a really good endurance record. And I don't think Terry Fox was, he wasn't promoting the Hacienda Hotel. I think he legitimately was trying to beat
wanted
cancer.
to stop the cancer.
Yeah, he did.
Okay, there are different levels of this. So, for example, I just saw an ad the other day with the guy his son had MS or was a quadriplegic. He pushed him in Ironman races or in ultra marathons. That's what it was. It'd be hard to do the swimming, I think. No, I think they maybe did an Ironman, and he figured out a way. It's just insane, whatever that story is. And I haven't checked in on that story for a long time. And the commercial opens, and he's pushing his son's thing, but his son's not in it.
Oh, gosh.
And I was watching a movie with Camilla, and both of us just...
I felt that when
we
you said
stopped our conversation. We immediately paid attention, and I haven't followed up on it. I don't know what happened, but as the ad went along, it gave the impression that now he's pushing other people.
Oh, gosh, dude.
Good.
I felt something when you said that. Wow.
So stuff means stuff, and similar things are not the same thing. I am going to go ahead and keep the Hacienda Hotel Endurance Aviation record attempt over here in the cheap promotional appeal to emotion exploitative side of things, and yet I still think it's awesome. I'm going to put the dad who pushed his son in the thing over here in the really meaningful thing along with Mr. Fox who ran across Canada. Are we good with that?
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because when I was reading these articles, that component had not even occurred to me, but you're absolutely right. We are still talking about a hotel that doesn't exist anymore, by the way. It was destroyed in the 90s to make way for the Mandalay. Is that a casino?
Somebody should have tried to break their record to raise money to keep their hotel open.
But it's interesting that was a... Yeah, you bring up an excellent point. I still think it's a cool story. I'm going to keep going.
I think it's a cool story too, and I want you to keep going, but I'm going to needle him for the cancer thing.
Yeah. Yes, there you go. You got that. So we move forward, and they figure out, hey, this is a hard thing to do. Our engine is not working. That little port that Robert Tim put in the firewall to get that alcohol down, well, the mechanic that's working on the Cessna, he's like, okay, look, Robert really wants this thing. I think it's horse crap. So he disconnects that pipe, and he just lets that alcohol run down, harmlessly to the bottom of the whole engine compartment. So there was a little bit of subterfuge going on, at least in one of the sources I read, where the mechanic disconnected it. So the guy that's about to fly the thing thinks he's doing something he's not actually doing, because the mechanic thinks, hey, if we want this thing to work, we got to use the engine like it was designed to run.
Okay.
I thought that was interesting.
Whose side are you on, Team Mechanic or Team Visionary?
Well, I mean, there's a little bit of a lie going on there. And also there's another guy that's going to be in the airplane.
In what way is it a little bit?
Oh, no, it's very much a lie.
Because dude is making decisions based on his knowledge and his brain about his survival that are rooted in the assumption that alcohol is going into the engine. For better or for worse, that's the mental calculation he's running. And Team Mechanic over there, he's changed the rules.
He did.
But also, if Team Mechanic is the actual mechanic and he's the one who knows, and he thinks that it's risky and problematic to put the alcohol in there, is Team Mechanic guy saving other guy from himself? Yeah, that's what we call an ethical conundrum.
That's what's happening. I like that. That's pretty good. So, long story short, short story long rather, they get up in this airplane and they start going, and people don't care. They're like, oh, whatever. They're doing the Hacienda thing. Okay, great. So they start circling around. They start flying.
Over Vegas?
Over Vegas. They went out into, there's this training area outside of Vegas, somewhere in California. They did that for a while. They just got to fly. That's all they got to do. And so they found that, well, our airplane is more efficient the higher we go, but it's cold up there. So they had to find this nice balance point where they're comfortable. Have you ever been in an airplane, an unpressurized cabin at high altitude?
Not super high altitude. I mean, I've been in unpressurized planes plenty of times, but I've been cold in one.
Yeah. So if you go too high, it gets crazy cold. And so I think they round up around 4,000 feet, if I remember the numbers that I read correctly. I could be wrong about that. I think it was somewhere in there. I know it's less than 10,000.
That's low enough to plant you into one of the mountains there around the Las Vegas Valley. I mean, Mount Charleston will get you at 4,000 feet real easy.
Which brings me to something that happened.
Uh-oh.
So they have a rudimentary, an autopilot. And so this autopilot is supposed to just keep everything flat and level. We're not talking about, highfalutin computational power back in the day, right? We are still like are we pre-transistor? I know they're starting to develop transistors for Apollo at this point, but we have early computers, but they're not great. So at this point in time, they have an autopilot. They're hearing the hum of the engine 24/7. They're taking turns. One guy will fly, one guy will sleep. They modified the passenger seat so that they could make this little porch-like area because they can't stretch their legs.
I had wondered about that.
Yeah. And so you're sitting.
That'll kill you.
Yeah, it will. Mm-hmm. You're sitting or laying down. And one thing we know now, we didn't know this then, is that if you're not standing up and fighting the force of gravity, you are literally peeing out your bones. Like your bone.
I've never heard that phrase before. You're peeing out your bones?
Yes. The calcium in your body.
Oh, it goes out your pee.
Yes. You're reabsorbing. So right now, when you lift weights, your body, I'm fascinated by this concept. I don't know how it works, but your body somehow says, there was a stress on that bone. I should probably allocate more structural material to that bone so that it can handle the stress in the future better.
Huh. So if you reduce the stress on all the bones at once, conversely, the body's like, we don't need to waste resources on these stupid bones anymore. Let's just pee that out.
Exactly.
Dang.
And so that mechanism in the human body, I don't understand it. But as an engineer, if I could make a material that could somehow detect stress and reallocate more material, dude, that's game changing. If you could ever do that, that would be incredible. That's what the human body does.
Huh.
So anyway, they started, they're not standing up. They're just laying there. So they started not feeling that great. They're going for days and days and days. And so it's like, man, what would that do to your brain just to hear an engine going and you're just flying this thing? What would you do?
I hope you brought books. The not standing is what would drive me crazy. Just the lack of ability to get out and around. And I also think having where you would really like to be constantly visible. But it's down there and you either have to land or fall out and die to go be where you'd like to be. Like there's a Hardee's down there, but you're not allowed to go to it because you're setting a flying record right now. So I think you'd start to feel really homesick and these little undercurrents of odd despair. The English boys in the trenches in the north of France in World War I. Apparently, I've never verified this myself, there are certain places where the trenches were dug, and there at the end of the line, you could see the lights of the southern UK from the trenches. All these boys want to do is go home. And apparently there's a psychological phenomenon where the British soldiers in the trenches who had the closest proximity to the coast, it was even harder because you could see it. There were rumors that with just the right conditions, you could almost hear the sounds or the music of home.
Whoa.
And it made them crazy. I think that would happen right there in that little plane that you got pulled up. It's fun and quaint when you get on a plane for the first time. You're like, I can see my house from here. But then eventually you're doing I can always see my house from here, where my family is and my comfortable bed. It's there and I just can't go to it.
That's a great point. They started this in early December. They experienced Christmas Day from the air.
Ugh.
Yeah, and so their kids, they flew over the house. I don't know if it was Robert's house or whatever. They flew over the house and they made these little parachutes and put candy canes in them and dropped them to their kids. So this happened between December and February, and they sure enough spent Christmas Day in the airplane.
That's cute, but horrible.
Right, exactly.
That's not what I want.
But remember, we're promoting the hotel, so it's okay.
I thought we were stopping cancer.
No. Oh, you're right. We're stopping cancer.
Wait a dang minute, dude. What's actually going on
We're
here?
stopping cancer, man.
Okay, because I want the episode to end if this is about some dumb hotel.
Okay.
Are we stopping cancer, Destin?
We're stopping cancer.
Well, let's keep going. I'd like to know more.
So we haven't talked about the refueling thing. Here's a picture. Describe what you see on this picture.
Well, okay, I see some problems. There's an old truck that looks like they're out in a salt flat. So this is a little bit like what I was envisioning. You're out on a salt flat, and there's
It's actually not a salt flat. It's a very, very long, straight stretch of road somewhere between Arizona and California.
Needles Highway. What? No, do they call it? No, Needles Highway's the Black Hills. Is it the Needles Highway also? What do they call that? It's from Boulder City, and you kind of go down toward Arizona, Lake Havasu. It's just a gun barrel. It is as straight and long as any road you'll ever see ever coming out of Boulder City, which is there on Lake Mead by Hoover Dam, and just going south. How come I can't remember the name of it? I think there's a town down there called Needles, and that's why I called it the Needles Highway. I don't know what the name of the thing is. Okay, so they're not on a salt flat. It looks like a dirt road, though.
It does,
so
yeah.
It looks like if you encountered bumps, this could get tricky in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
They got a big semi-rigid tube. Can't tell how thick, but I would say the diameter there is maybe 2 inches.
So how did that tube get to the airplane? You got any ideas there? Keep going. What do you see below the airplane?
I see a truck, and there's a dude standing in the back of the truck. Okay, this is my guess for how it got to the airplane. I think the guy in the truck held that semi-rigid but somewhat flexible tube straight up, and I think they built a catch onto the plane, and he held that up, and they lined it up, caught the catch, which maybe dangled, then reeled in the catch to get the seal and get the fuel. But then you got to have a monster of a pump down there in that truck to move fuel that high. I mean, that's a pretty significant pump.
Yeah.
It's a big stretch.
The most important word you said was reels. They had a winch on the airplane, so you're right. They reeled it up. So they had this hook. They would dangle it down, and they would somehow get the end of the hose from the truck that's pacing them down this desert highway.
So they dropped the hook clear down to them, so with the hands, the guy in the truck could do it.
Right.
So this is all happening on a dark desert highway.
Yep, exactly.
Cool wind breeze in that guy's hair.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he gets the thing, and he has to connect it and send it all the way back up.
Was there some Hotel California in there?
Hotel what now? We're talking about the Hotel Hacienda, dude.
That's right. So anyway, they haul that thing up there.
Check out any time you want, but you can never leave.
They have it set up where they can fuel this thing as it's going.
Okay.
So the truck driver is suddenly very important. You have to drive this truck straight, and you have to have the airplane at the correct altitude. You don't want to be going up and down. You don't want to be going left and right.
Right.
You have to be perfectly paced. It's a pretty interesting thing. So if you had to do this like 4 times a day, they had to do this well over 100 times. More than
4 times a day? Is that really the number?
I think it's something like that. Maybe it was 2 times a day. I don't know. It was a lot.
So maybe 250 times.
The most important thing is they also had to do it in the dark. That's where it gets crazy. Because if you're looking at this right now, the way they do this is this airplane, they have to line up with the road and they just drive straight, or fly straight along the road. Once the truck gets in position, they could probably get under the airplane and look up and just keep that airplane right there. You would accelerate and decelerate as needed to keep that plane at a certain place in your windshield. And then you just bank on that hose operator that can handle it. To me, this is the most dicey part of the whole thing, refueling.
To me, this invalidates the whole record.
Why?
They're connected to the ground.
Yeah, but they stayed. You're right. But they are flying the whole time.
Destin.
Yes.
If I am running down the
sideline... Do you
want
cancer to end or not?
Oh, okay, never mind. I want cancer to end. I take back everything I said. I hope this ends cancer. If I'm running down the sideline and I catch a pass and the ball is over the field of play, inbounds, imagining we're playing football.
Okay.
But my right foot is touching out of bounds.
You're out of bounds.
It feels like I'm out of bounds even though the ball is inbounds.
You're out of, yeah.
It feels like this only half counts.
I mean,
they're connected to the ground.
When it comes to football and this, they're not samesies.
I think they're samesies.
Okay, so anyway.
You can't just call no samesies. Okay, well, you have your perspective, I have mine. What we can both agree on is that we hate cancer.
That's right.
And the ravaging effects it can have on lives and families.
Exactly.
So we're in with these people.
So somewhere along the way, the monotony gets to him. And Robert ends up falling asleep at the yoke. Mm-hmm. And he sleeps for like hours. No, maybe I don't know. He sleeps for a long dang time. Maybe it's an hour. I don't know what it is. Because they have the autopilot, they don't crash. And they wake up and they're like, oh, hey, I was asleep. Where are we? And then they had to navigate after that.
We are 200 yards from the face of Mount Charleston.
Exactly. The fact that they were pointing away from the mountains is the only reason they were alive. So at that moment in time, I think, I didn't see my kids at Christmas. I could have died because this moron right here fell asleep. I'm kind of done. I'm kind of done.
I'm kind of done.
If we had a reasonable expectation that we're going to cure cancer, I'm still in. But we've got Hacienda painted on the side of our airplane here. Hacienda Hotel. So anyway.
Right. But did Judith Palmer say she was kind of done during her second round of chemotherapy? No. And if she could keep fighting bravely, I think we can keep fighting bravely. That'd be my attitude when I'm up there.
Dude, cancer's... We've both known people that have died from cancer. We are dangerously close to not joking territory.
The joke is not cancer. The joke is their facetious concern about cancer to promote their hotel.
You're right. And that was the thing. They were reaching for this moral justice, this moral, I don't know what the word is. They needed a justification. And they tag that on there, and by doing that, they could get a lot more people interested or
I get it.
willing
And
to
that's
go.
just how stuff works.
It is how it works.
Whatever.
All right, so
Feels cheap.
let me get you to the end.
All right.
So they kept going. The instrumentation starts, blacking out on all the panels and stuff. One by one, things start to fail in the airplane, but the engine kept going. They lost all the lights in their panels. They lost the lights that was helping them figure, like on the wings. Like the FAA would shut you down today, but they lost the lights on their wings, kept going. The refueling truck kept being able to do the thing. At one point, the refueling truck itself broke, and they resorted to getting 5-gallon gasoline cans and just sending stuff up via the winch and fueling the airplane by hand, which is incredible to me.
Just quit.
Right. I didn't mention this, though. Maybe this is why they stayed in it. The whole time, the food that they're eating, they're getting steaks made from the hotel.
What?
I know. You see, you're back in now. The chef at the hotel is making them like gourmet food.
Yeah.
And they're chopping it up and they're putting it in thermoses because that's the only way they could get it to go up the winch system. So they're eating their food out of thermoses. What do you think they did for the poop situation?
Put it back in the thermos, send it back down.
That was so quick. So sometimes you say things that remind me, your brain is witheringly fast when you want it to be. That is so funny. No, they pooped in plastic bags.
Oh.
And someone asked one of them after the fact, like, what did you do with your poop? And they're like, well, all those little clumps of flowers all over the valley? And there you go. So apparently they were dropping poop bombs all over.
Okay.
So that's what they did. And they eventually got there. They realized, we've broken the record. They look at each other and like, hey man, we broke the record. Great.
It's time.
No, that's not what they did. They said, let's keep going because we want to put a little
cancer.
We want to put a little distance on this record.
Oh,
so that nobody. Well, let's make it so absurd.
That cancer can't come back later.
That's right. We're gonna make it so absurd that no one will want to try to break this record in the future. Like they would just lose interest.
What was the previous record?
I don't know. I want to say it was like 50 days or something. Oh, it was whatever 64 minus 15 is. Was that 49 days?
49. They stayed up there for an extra 2 weeks just because?
Another 15 days. No, wait, hold on, wait. Even if you kept fueling eventually. No, let me see. Let me find it. I can't find what the previous record was. But what I do see here is he fell asleep at day 36. And shortly after that, the autopilot quit working. So now they had...
Good.
Yeah. So anyway, they kept going once they broke the record. I wish I knew what the record was previously. But I mean... That's not the record holder. Who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
That's lost to history. Nobody cares about that.
Irrelevant.
They kept
not
going.
Not even an achievement.
Until 64 days. The official record is 64 days, 22 hours, 19 minutes. They made the decision. We're done. They start lining up, and then the journalists come out. Now it's interesting to everybody.
Oh, now you like us.
Yeah, exactly.
Now you're against cancer.
So then they bring out the trucks, and then they come in, they make a low pass, and they look and they verify, yes, verily, I say unto thee, there is a white stripe on the tire. And so, okay, they must have been in the air this whole time. And so they come down, and then they land, and they have to be helped out of the airplane because their bodies are like astronauts. Have you ever seen astronauts land after a long duration? They have to carry them like a child. It's that kind of situation. So my question is, was this worth it? We're still talking about it. We're a long ways away. We're 60 years away from this.
Well, I've gone my whole life without talking about it, so we're not still talking about it that much.
Okay. You're against this stunt. I feel like you've just made a decision that this is not awesome. I think it's awesome.
Okay, I think it's awesome. On the one hand, it feels cheapened by what it is. On the other hand, I love what it is.
Right.
I live in the Black Hills of South Dakota, man. I love stupid roadside tourist traps. I love gimmicks and ridiculous things that don't make any sense that you just do because it's cool and so we might as well do it. It's fun for me to look at that and kind of needle them a little bit about the fake altruism thing. It's fun for me to think about how much I would hate to do it myself. But the fact that I would hate to do it myself is also why I respect it, and I think it's cool, and I think it's fun.
Yeah, they asked him, they said, well, would you ever think of breaking this record again? He said, if I ever thought about breaking the record, and he made this funny joke about locking me up until I wake up in the morning, and when I do finally wake up, make me see a psychiatrist. It's interesting to me I don't know if that's the competitive spirit of people. I'm a competitive person. You're a competitive person. If I can juggle and I can toss it in the air 90 times, what do you have to do? 91.
Yeah, 180.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not only do you have to beat my record, you have to crush it.
Crush it. Yeah, I want you to feel bad about who you are
You
as
even
a man.
tried. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I did finally find it. The previous record was 50 days. And
That's
so they,
cute.
They stayed, yeah, who cares? They stayed in there another 2 weeks after beating the record.
To just curb stomp the previous people
Exactly.
who jumped in while they were still working out the kinks, stole their idea, set a record. I think that's why they stayed up the extra 2 weeks. It wasn't enough to just barely get by those guys, is to make it so they would have no temptation to ever try to rise up and revolt again. It's a curb stomp. Try doing that without teeth, homie.
So this is the question I have, because we don't have this information. This Army test of this Zephyr aircraft. Okay, now let's change everything. Let's say you, Mr. Whitman, you are the test director over this new long-duration forever airplane we've built.
Cool.
We're going to do our maiden flight. We're going to check. Maybe this is the 5th flight. I have no idea. We're going to end the test in a week or so. When do you want to land? When do you want to bring it down? I don't know if it came down because of a mechanical failure. I don't know. But let's say, for example, that it's flying perfectly. And you know that the long duration record was set by Robert Tim and John Cook, the mechanic, the airplane mechanic. I don't know if I ever said his name. You know that these two gentlemen back in the 50s set this record just with gumption and, all their skills and their World War II bomber pilot, experience and their ability to just figure things out. Would you land the plane before the record, or would you go another hour and a half just so your plane, granted, they would still have the piloted airplane record.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Have I been ordered to land the plane because the test is done, we're out of budget? Because if there's one thing I learned from Top Gun Maverick, it's when you're in the military and you feel like just giving the middle finger to your commanding officers and doing whatever you want because you do it.
Never.
And then later they're like, you shouldn't have done that. But deep down they love you and don't care.
Negative Ghost Rider, the patter is full. Yeah.
I've never been in the military, but I'm pretty sure I understand how things work there. They love it when you don't do what you're told.
I think, court-martialing is not a thing. Yeah, exactly.
Nope. Yeah, of course, if I have the blessing to keep that thing in the air, I'm going to. But here's the discouraging part. What are the ground rules of this if it doesn't matter if it's manned? Because then I go down to my commanding officer's office to tell him that I just set the all-time record for a thing being in the air, manned or unmanned. And I look on his desk, and he's got this little device that he got at Sharper Image for Christmas. And it's got a levitating little metal ball that's been floating like that. And I'm like, well, how long's that been there? Oh, this thing? Oh, my wife probably got that for me 5-6 years ago. I don't even know why I have it. And I'm like, how much did that cost? I $40. Because that thing is the current record holder if all we're doing is keep a thing in the air for the longest amount of time. So I would need more parameters.
And that's a great point, because you will see, there's the Guinness World Record holder thing. You will see like, oh, well, I'm the longest juggler to do whatever. I'm the longest juggler to do it on my left foot.
I'm the biggest man alive.
In this specific...
Currently in this ring.
Yeah, exactly. So I think records are made to be broken. Some records are more important than others. I see nations doing this a lot. Oh, we had a person in space for this long. Oh, well, we've got a person in space for this long. Oh, we've got an airplane that'll do this. Well, we've got an airplane that'll do that.
And obviously the ISS is the winner of manned time flying anyway.
Yeah. It's interesting. This says something interesting about us as people. I'm just not sure what it is, but we do have a desire to beat others and besting them at whatever the thing is.
So much good has come out of that. So much soul poison has come out of that. But so much good. Dude, I got to call you on that. You just made the gesture to land the plane.
I know.
But if we go for another 3 minutes and 15 seconds, it'll be the longest episode we've recorded in several weeks. So I cannot land the plane. No, in all seriousness.
Land the plane, man. It's just right there, dude.
It's right there.
Lunch is right there, dude.
Oh, I want the lunch.
Land the plane.
On the one hand, competitive stuff has done dark things to my heart at times and caused me to embarrass myself and hurt the feelings of people I care about. At other times, competitiveness and that feisty thing that I have in me has caused me to make the lives of people I care about better and to serve others and to do selfless things and to do things that are of value. There's a song that some ridiculous cheeseball musician wrote in the 80s or 90s. Nobody's going to know what I'm talking about. It's so niche. But the song was about a dude having a crush on a girl at church, like a youth group or that kind of church setting, right? And Mr. Somebody's Daughter is the name of the song. He's liked her. So he's going to church and he's praying, sweating, and reading his Bible and all of this stuff. But it's got nothing to do with God. He just wants to get this Mr. Bailey's daughter. I think that's what it's called. He wants to get this young lady to like him. And there's a line in the song where he's like, sometimes maybe it's okay to do all the right things for the wrong reasons or something like that. I think competition is that way. Competition is something that harnesses our prideful impulses. And with just a little nudge one way or the other, what can come out of it is Icarus-like ruin and disaster, or Edison-like hubris that leads to discovery that serves all of mankind forever, and it was always a bigger destiny at the other end than your own glorification.
Well said. Well said. Another thing I think of here is these types of things create innovation, leaps forward. And I'm not going to say it better than you just said it. But what would be different if suddenly the longest duration flight determines the outcome of whether we live or die, meaning war? So there's two levels of competition. There's this, what did you, 50 days? All right, well, we're just going to stay up here another 2 weeks just because. But I have noticed the largest explosion in technological development and all these things when who wins that competition actually matters.
Because necessity is
the mother of invention.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I would push back a little bit on necessity is the mother of invention. I would say necessity is a mother of invention, but there's a rival mother of invention, and it's ego.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about when ego is the mother of invention is that there's really very little crisis going on. You're finding peacetime solutions that may have applications in crisis times. And if the price you have to pay for it is someone is a swaggery, arrogant jerk and gets a little into themselves in the meantime, yeah, maybe that's not such a bad price to pay for invention that isn't born out of necessity, but that is still incredibly useful and a service to other people.
That's the best argument I've ever heard for selfish ambition. And I think that peacetime was tacked onto it is what made it work. That's interesting.
Good story. I enjoyed this. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.
Lunch.
Let's do it. Land the plane.